Ready for a wild ride through one of the most bizarre political events we've seen in a while? What happens when Donald Trump, eager to snatch the spotlight back after Kamala Harris's DNC speech, decides to stage an event at the Mexican border in Arizona? The result is a spectacle of confusion, where accidental endorsements, twisted history lessons, and downright puzzling moments leave everyone wondering what just happened. If you thought politics couldn't get any stranger, this event might just change your mind. Let's start with the highlight of the event: Trump's accidental endorsement of none other than Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. Yes, you heard that right. In his attempt to bash San Francisco, Trump declared that 15 years ago, San Francisco was the best city in the country and one of the best in the world. Now hold on a second. Who was in charge of San Francisco 15 years ago? That would be Gavin Newsom as mayor and Kamala Harris as district attorney.
With getting some attention away from Kamala Harris's DNC speech, suffered an acute bout of confusion at a ridiculous event held at the Arizona border with Mexico. Confusion after confusion, and Donald Trump seemingly accidentally endorsing Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. Trump, in his desperation to attack everything and everyone, said the following about San Francisco.
California, you can't go into San Francisco. It's not livable. 15 years ago, it was the best city in the country, one of the best cities in the world. And now you can't do anything. Look at what she's done. And now she's going to be president, and she's going to do the exact...
So, in his attempt to trash the city and its leaders, Trump inadvertently ended up giving Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom credit for making San Francisco great. It's the kind of blunder that's almost too perfect, like watching someone set up for a slam dunk, only to slip on a banana peel and accidentally score for the opposing team. Trump's intent was to slam the city's current state, but instead, he highlighted how, under the leadership of Harris and Newsom, it was once the best city in the country. Imagine the collective chuckle from Harris and Newsom's camps as they realized Trump had unintentionally boosted their political resumes. If this was Trump's idea of a sick burn, it backfired spectacularly, so much so that you can almost picture Kamala and Gavin drafting thank you notes, thanking Trump for his unwitting endorsement of their past leadership. Next up, Trump's version of border history, which was more fiction than fact. When asked why he didn't support the bipartisan border security bill, Trump responded with a tale that would have made Aesop proud. According to Trump, when he was president, he didn't need a bill. He just told Brandon to close the border, and poof, the border was closed. No bill, no fuss, just Trump magic.
If they wanted to close the border, I didn't have a bill. I said, close the border. I said, Brandon, close that border, Brandon. And what happened? He closed the border. They all did. Paul, the whole group of them. This group is incredible. They closed the border. I looked at him. I said, we don't have a bill. We don't need a bill. Close the damn border. They closed.
The problem? None of that actually happened. Trump appears to be confusing his border wall fantasies with reality, which, as we all know, is a dangerous game to play, especially when the stakes are this high. If closing the border was truly that easy, you'd think it would be a major point of pride for Trump, something he'd recall with precision. Yet here we are, listening to a bizarre anecdote that leaves us with more questions than answers. Who exactly is Brandon, and why does Trump seem to believe that he single-handedly commanded the border to be closed with just a few words? It's as if Trump is rewriting history on the fly, creating a narrative where his every whim becomes reality. This story, much like many others he's told, seems to exist in a parallel universe, one where Trump's imagined victories replace the facts, leaving the rest of us scratching our heads. No Trump event would be complete without some good old-fashioned election denial, and this Arizona speech didn't disappoint. Trump claimed that he should have won Minnesota twice, but was thwarted by hanky-panky.
His numbers are horrible. People are fleeing his state. I love his state. We should have won his state twice, but a lot of hanky-panky goes on there. Hasn't been won since 1972. Richard Nixon was the last one to win it. But every time I go in there, we have massive crowds and everything's good, but nobody seems to be able to win it. So I know why we didn't win it. People don't like to talk about it.
Let's really break this down. Minnesota hasn't voted for a Republican in a presidential election since Richard Nixon in 1972. Yes, you heard that right, 1972. It's been a rock-solid Democratic stronghold ever since. So, the idea that Trump was somehow cheated out of a win in this deep blue state isn't just a stretch, it's downright delusional. I mean, come on. Trump's argument seems to rest on the idea that his massive crowds should have magically transformed into votes. But, let's be real, that's not how elections work, and we all know it. Sure, big crowds can be impressive and make for great optics, but they don't automatically translate to votes, especially in a state that has leaned left for nearly 5 decades. Trump's insistence that some kind of hanky-panky was the reason he didn't win Minnesota is just ignoring the political reality. There are simply more Democrats in Minnesota than Republicans. No mystery. No conspiracy, just basic math. It blows my mind that Trump refuses to acknowledge this. Instead of recognizing that Minnesota has been reliably Democratic for generations, he's trying to spin a narrative that just doesn't hold up. I can't believe he's still pushing this story. It's like he's living in an alternate reality. Of course, no Trump speech about the border would be complete without some lurid, out-of-context horror stories designed to stir up fear. In what's become a disturbing tradition, Trump launched into graphic descriptions of violent crimes committed by undocumented immigrants.
He wrapped his arms around her throat, pinned her down on a park bench, and raped her publicly on a park bench. And she said, he wasn't trying to rape me, he was trying to kill me. In Michigan earlier this year, an illegal alien broke into a residence and sexually assaulted 2 young girls, doing tremendous damage to these 2 young, beautiful.
These tales, delivered with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer, are clearly designed to paint a picture of a nation under siege. But honestly, they do little more than highlight Trump's obsession with fear-mongering. It's like he's desperately trying to scare the audience into submission, thinking that if he can't win them over with logic, he might at least terrify them into agreement. I mean, come on, the theatrics are off the charts. The real issue here is that these stories, while undeniably tragic, are the exceptions, not the rule. Trump's reliance on these outliers only serves to underscore the weakness of his broader argument. It's as if he's clinging to these extreme cases to justify a narrative that doesn't hold up under closer scrutiny. I can't help but wonder if he genuinely believes that by amplifying these isolated incidents, he can paint an entire demographic with the same brush. But we know better. This kind of fear-driven rhetoric isn't just misleading, it's downright irresponsible. And then, in what has become a familiar pattern, even Fox News had enough. As Trump's speech veered further into the ridiculous, Fox News made the executive decision to cut away from the coverage.
We're under. The final gaps of the wall were about to be sealed. Then Kamala came in.
We are monitoring Donald Trump.
Single...
He is at a border community just along the Arizona-Mexico border.
Yes, and monitor very, very closely, Neil Cavuto. Thank you very much. A ridiculous event, Trump painfully confused.
Now, you know things are really bad when the network that's been Trump's biggest cheerleader decides they just can't broadcast what he's saying anymore. That's exactly what happened during this event, when Fox News, which has long been Trump's media megaphone, decided enough was enough. Neil Cavuto's voice suddenly cut in with a dry, almost disinterested, "We are monitoring," which is TV code for, "We can't keep showing this train wreck." I mean, when your most loyal supporters in the media start quietly stepping away from the podium, you know the situation has spiraled out of control. It's a clear signal that things have gone completely off the rails. If even Fox News is hitting the brakes on covering Trump's ramblings, it's a pretty stark indicator that the content has veered so far into the absurd that even they can't justify airing it live. That's saying something. So, what are we left with after this head-spinning event at the Arizona border? A painfully confused Trump, who managed to accidentally endorse his political rivals, rewrite history to suit his narrative, and spin tales so outlandish that even Fox News had to tap out. It's a reminder that Trump's grip on reality, never the firmest to begin with, seems to be slipping further by the day. Trump's Arizona event was supposed to be a show of strength, a rallying cry for his base, but instead it turned into a display of confusion and desperation. His accidental endorsements, made in the heat of the moment, are a gift to his opponents, while his wild claims about border control and election fraud only serve to isolate him further from the facts. And when even the most loyal corners of the media can't stick with you, it's clear that the message isn't landing. In the end, Trump's event in Arizona wasn't just a campaign misstep. It was a spectacle that highlighted the growing gap between Trump's rhetoric and reality. As he continues to grasp for relevance, it's becoming increasingly clear that the Trump show is starting to run out of steam. If this event was any indication, the 2024 election season is going to be one wild, unpredictable ride, and not necessarily in Trump's favor.